This week on Sylvia's Traders Lounge.
If I were to start out with my trading, if I only had known then what I know now, oh my God, my trading journey would have been half. So you start with self-awareness, right? That's the most important thing. What do you think? What do you feel? How do you talk yourself out of doing what you say you would? So how do you talk yourself out of getting into the trade when you see the setup?
Thank you guys for joining us to today's webinar. Silver's Traders Lounge welcomes you all to yet another webinar where we learn, trade, and profit. We shall be giving you trading insights on technical analysis, fundamental analysis, risk management, and trading psychology. Today's guest is Mandi Pour, Rafsanjani, and our theme is why psychology plays a key role to your trading success. Mandi is an active DAX trader and an expert in human behavior, having trained and fully qualified as a professional coach, NLP Master Trainer, and is a certified eDesk behavioral profiler. She has been working with traders across the globe, helping them to overcome trading challenges and optimize their trading performance for the past 16 years. Welcome, Mandi. It's always an honor to have you to our trading lounge, and we are so grateful that you made the time, 10 p.m. your time. So it's an honor.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be with you guys. So all across the globe, from Nairobi to Melbourne.
Yeah. And so maybe as we start off, you can just tell us how you found yourself in the trading industry as a trading psychologist, as a performance coach, and also you trade the German index. So you can just detail to us how that happened.
Sure. So I obviously didn't read that. I obviously didn't write that intro that you just gave about me. Someone else wrote it for me, and it's always so weird hearing, hearing that about yourself. So, how I got into trading psychology was simply because I needed it badly. I started out trading, and I remember I was in my first weekend seminar. That was 2002. There was no internet at the time, so we had to go to seminars and we had to read books. And it was an options trading seminar. And so the presenter said, the biggest challenge is being disciplined. And I remember I stood up and I said, not a problem for me because I'm German. We Germans invented discipline. And so little did I know that it doesn't matter if you're German or not. Discipline was one of my biggest challenges. What I found out along the way, because I had never done personal development, was that I was quite neurotic. I was, very insecure. I had a lot of some traumatic experiences growing up that impacted me still later in life. And so I had to do a lot of work on myself, Sylvia. And I never knew. I always thought I'm a normal person. And I only realized when I got to trading that suddenly I had all these emotions and suddenly I was not able to do what I wanted to do or to do what I said I would do. And then I started my personal development journey, and with that, Tony Robbins and Landmark and John DeMartini, like you call it, I've done it. And then I did a course as a life coach. That was my first course as a life coach. I did 2 more afterwards just to expand my training, and also the eDisc training that you mentioned. That is the DISC profile that Tony Robbins also loves. And so what I learned was how to use this disc profile to really get an idea on what a person's weakness and what a person's strength is, and then use that insight into helping them to overcome their trading challenges, because that was one of the key areas that helped me, where I was like, I remember I read my disc profile and I was in awe. I was like, oh my God, that describes me. Now I finally understand why I'm struggling so much. So that was pretty much my journey in terms of my own personal development and how I got into trading psychology. And then what happened was I was working or was trading with a company called Boer Starter here in Australia. They don't exist anymore. That was at the time, right? And their, I think it was the sales director, David Galtieri. We had lunch together at a really nice place in the city, and it was just being friends, right? And then he said to me, you know, I'm seeing your results. They have changed so much. You're improving so much. And you know, what are you doing? Then I shared with him my journey of personal development and my journey as a life coach. And he said, oh my God, I was looking for someone like you. And he took me on a tour around Australia. So Adelaide, Brisbane, Melbourne, Perth, and Sydney. And I was presenting about trading psychology. That was 2006. And thank you to David Galtieri, because that opened up the path to being a trading psychology coach and then a performance coach after that. Because trading psychology and performance is very, very different. So I just need to let you guys know, very different pathways. That's my journey with trading psychology. How I got to trade the DAX, which is a very different story. Now we talk about performance, was that I was trading with a CFD, right, MT4, and connected my account to my FX book and realized that the so I was trading Forex at the time, that I wasn't doing well in Forex. And I was trading gold at the time, that I wasn't doing so well in gold either. And I was trading the DAX at the time, and there was a clear winner. The DAX I was doing really well with. And this is how I got to trade the DAX. Now, why am I doing better with the DAX? I don't know. Maybe because I'm German and we have an affinity. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But my statistics told me DAX is the way to go. So, yeah.
Interesting. And you know, it's for you, you double up as a trader and also as a trading psychologist, which is really impressive. Most of the times you'd find that traders and performance coaches have different lines of work. So for you specifically, how did you find that confidence? And then even like coaching people and identifying their areas of weaknesses, how did that come about for you?
Yeah, awesome question. And I love that you point this out, that most are either traders or performance coaches. I have to say, I'm not a psychologist. So psychologist is when you study psychology at university. Even though my website is called Trading Psychology, in 2006, there was no political correctness. So I have to just point out, disclaimer, I'm a trained coach. I have a diploma in coaching. But we do the same studies as psychologists. It's a different training in terms of psychologists usually look mostly at the past and try to heal the past. Whereas as a coach, I just need to have enough information about the past so that I can go into solution coaching, so creating a new future. To give you an example, I was working with a trader who had experienced loss as a child growing up. And so the parents were really wealthy, middle class wealthy. And then overnight, they lost the business, they lost everything. So overnight, they went from being wealthy to being extremely poor. That was a significant event for him that always was echoing in his life. And it showed specifically in trading in terms of him being afraid to give profits back. Anytime he made money, immediately he would have this intense fear that he would lose it again. So that was the echo from the past. Now, I'm not going to the past and stay in the past like a psychologist. I just needed to know where that fear came from. And then we resolve that by going into the future, creating a new future with new behaviors, new thinking patterns, and just giving him different skills and different way of interacting with the world that will help him to improve his trading. So that's really the difference. So how I learned to do that, really simple. Had an amazing teacher, amazing mentor. As I said, I was learning from 3 different schools. And then I practiced like in trading. There's no secret to anything. I practiced together with my my friends to identify what specific personality is someone, what is their behavioral pattern. So, you know, DISC is 4 different energy types. And so we would walk through the streets and say, okay, so, oh, this person would be a D. I reckon this person is a high I because, you know, the way they are dressed. We would meet new people and we would say, oh, this person might be a high C because the way he speaks. And so we would train and practice our skill like we do as traders. When you get a double top setting up, just because you read in a book what a double top looks like doesn't mean you can trade it. So you have to really go on live market replay or on sim or whichever way you want to learn it and practice identifying a double top. Same.
Alrighty, and then having coached very many traders, from your experience, what are the common biases that you have come across that make people, you know, operate from a point of being in a successive, too many trades being in successive losses and drawdowns for a period of time, and how can people overcome that?
Yeah. So that now with this question, we have to distinguish between different types of traders. Not everyone is the same.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like I had just said, with a disc profile, we have 4 different energy levels. So the way they make decisions, the way they interact with the world is very different to each other. So when we have someone who is a high D, they're usually the guys who are facts and figures focused. They are not really thinking much about emotions, and you know, they don't care about emotions. But when we have a high I or high S, for example, high I's, they're very emotional, very touchy feeling, and the high S's, they're more the motherly type. They're also very in tune with their emotions. Now, when I have a high D personality or behavioral pattern, and I would talk to them about emotions, they would just run away, like not interested. So, you know, that's how we have to work with everyone differently, and everyone has different challenges. The high Ds, they're like, in my opinion, the Navy SEALs of trading. They are very focused on being the best trader they can be by learning and studying and understanding the market. So usually very smart. They understand options. Right? Options is so hard for me. I'm not a high D as such, but I trained myself to be higher in my D. So the beautiful part about the disc profile is that all those 4 energy types are available to all of us. So naturally, I was a high I, but then being a high I, that is someone who makes decisions solely on how they feel. Do I feel like going to the gym or not? Do I feel like taking that loss or not? Right? Mostly, I didn't feel like taking that loss. Do I feel like getting up in the morning or not? So that is not a very good decision-making process, right? Now, the advantage that I have with my natural high I inclination is that I'm very in touch with my intuition. My intuition has saved me so many times. Just a little example, I was this afternoon, I went to my kinesiologist, and as I was leaving, I had this fleeting thought of, oh, I should bring that little bottle where she gives me usually drops. And I thought, oh, I just should bring it, you know. And then lo and behold, to give me new drops, and we could reuse that bottle that she gave me before. So I have learned to listen to my intuition and understand my intuition. Whereas someone who is more a high D, they wouldn't have much intuition, because intuition is a lot of feeling based. So the high Ds, as I said, they make their decisions based on facts and figures. High Is on what they feel like. The high S's make their decisions based on time. So if you were to buy a car, then you would go to the dealership on a Friday, maybe buy some magazines or check on the internet. And then he would say, give me the weekend and I make my decision over the weekend. Now, someone who needs time to make a decision, Sylvia, they're not good at scalping. Right? So when we know that someone naturally more a high S, then I would say to them, look at swing trading or look at maybe investing, longer term investing. And the high Cs, that is also very interesting. They are the ones who are really well organized. And usually they need 3 pieces of information to make a decision. So this is something that I also took on from, Tom Dante, most probably from Twitter. And he, I think, in my opinion, he is a high C because he's very, very organized. And so he has the sequence of decision steps that he has. And I added that to my trading where I say, so I have 4 different steps that I need to go through. So the first step is I look at the market environment. Right now it's really volatile, right? Are we in a creeping market? Are we in a volatile market, in an impulsive market? I need to understand what kind of market we are in. Step 2 is I look for a big picture chart pattern setting up. Is there a double top, a double bottom, a triangle, head and shoulders, inverse head and shoulders? And so when I know what kind of market environment we are in, as you know, at the moment to go short is not the best strategy. So I would be inclined to look more for long patterns than for short patterns. And that's why step 1 is so important. And then after I have identified there is a double top, let's say, or a double bottom setting up, we had this beautiful double bottom on the DEX setting up a few weeks ago. I think it was middle of February, I can't remember. And then I look for a divergence. Yeah, so that's number 3. And number 4 is then my defining piece of information. It's a candlestick information. Is there a bullish candle reversal pattern on the second bottom? So I think in this case it was a bullish engulfing, or it was a doji, I can't remember. So now you can see my steps are so clear, and I know exactly when to enter. As soon as that candle is completed, I know what to do, where to put my stop loss. So you can see what I've been doing is I have been using all 4 different types of behavioral or energy patterns that human beings have, and have taken the best and added that to my trading. So you asked, what's the biggest challenge that traders have? And I think they don't know themselves. They don't understand how they tick. And so when you do a test, for example, the disc profiles are free on the internet, and you see you're a high D, well, then scalping might be the way for you. Then, you might be too impatient to do longer term trading. And once they identify, so what most traders do is they go and look for a strategy. They look for someone who's teaching them a strategy, rather than looking at them first and doing tests on what are my natural strengths. Am I someone who makes decision fast or slow? Am I someone who is what we call a mismatcher? So they always have to do the opposite. Or am I someone who likes to be like everyone else? A mismatcher is great at trading reversal patterns. Someone who likes to be with a big group and like everyone else, they're amazing at continuation patterns. Now, when you know what your natural strength is, then you know, so for example, I'm a mismatcher naturally. I don't like to be the same like everyone. I mean, now I'm over it. Now I have given that up, but that's how I started out, right? Then I had to teach myself to become good at continuation patterns. And how did I do that? Practice, 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 practice. So now it's really important that you then get a really big toolbox of information, of strategies, of knowledge. And for example, you have spoken to Linda a lot. I know Linda Rushke. And I think Linda's biggest advantage, and what I have learned so much from her, is she can read the market environment so well. How many times did she say, oh, there is a pattern, let's say beefy setting up, or a hamburger setting up, or a short skirt setting up. She has these funny names for her trading strategies. And then she says, but in this market environment, I don't think this is going to work. So I'm going to go with the other pattern setting up because that works better with this market environment. What I recently learned as well from a client of mine, funny enough, sometimes I think I have to pay my clients, is that on a Friday, when the last day of the month falls on a Friday, then in the last hour, there is a really big flush to the downside. Because I think because of the big players, they try to go, they don't want to go into the weekend with the positions.
All right, so let's just give her a moment to log back in. I think she's experiencing a challenge with her internet. Meanwhile, in case you have any questions, kindly put them in the Q&A section, also the chat area. Then after our presentation, she'll be glad to answer. Oh, you're back.
Sorry, guys. I don't know what happened here.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
That's okay. You know, in 2012, I did some work with Steve Ward. So I went through a little bit of a tough time and I needed a coach. So I appointed Steve as my coach. And he always said to me, you know, race car drivers, they have race car problems. Traders have computer problems. So deal with it. And he's right. Huh?
Yep.
So
welcome back.
Thank you. So just to pick up again, so when I look at working with a trader, I look at 3 key areas. So number 1 is self-management. Do they have a strategy that works? So do they know what to do, but they're not doing what they know? So do they micromanage their trades, meaning that they get out too early or too late? Do they not take their losses, or do they hesitate going into the trade? This is really the 3 main mistakes traders make. Then I look at the strategy. Does the strategy work? And often when traders have the problem of not getting out because they don't want to take the loss, for example, then I can identify that their exit strategy is actually not really well thought through, that there's too much, too much discretion. And then when we look at the exit strategy and improving the exit strategy, then their decision-making process on getting out of the trade or not is so much easier. Yeah, so not taking a loss is not always a discipline problem or a psychological problem. Often what I see is that the strategy needs improvement. It's kind of like when you are traveling in the train and you want to get off the train. You need to wait for that very moment when the doors open. And the exit strategy has to be that clear cut that you know exactly when to get out. So what I was working with a trader recently who had problems that he didn't get out of his losing trades. And what happened was that his exit strategy was a moving average. But when we had a trade that was an impulse trade, so going really hard and fast, and it was very far from the moving average, he would give back a lot of his profits. Now, then he would say to himself, I don't want to give back my profits. I want to make that money back. And then he would hope that the trade goes back up, but it wouldn't. And that's how you would then end up in a loss. Apologies. So we need to look at the strategy. And then, as I said, at the moment, the market is extremely volatile. And what happens is that newer traders, they're not used to the volatility and they keep trading their strategy. They keep using the same risk and money management. And what I found with a lot of traders is that they keep the same risk management. So, you know, where they're putting their stop loss. And because of the volatility, they get being taken out by 1 or 2 ticks, and then the trade continues in their direction, leaving them behind. And sorry. And so what happens after the trade, after they got taken out at a loss, and the trade takes off without them, they feel the sense of regret. They feel angry, they feel frustrated, they feel betrayed, they feel disappointed, whatever that feeling is for the individual trader. And this is then the moment when they say, oh, that feels so bad, I don't want to feel bad. And what do they do? What do we do when we feel bad and we try not to feel bad? We give in to the urge and we press that mouse button and we get into a trade. a trade that is not based on strategy, not based on analysis. And so it often turns into a losing trade. And then we want to make that loss back. And what do? We get again into another trade that is not based on an analogy or, sorry, on analysis or on strategy. And then we go on tilt. Going on tilt meaning we now mindlessly keep pressing that mouse button, getting into trades, either not taking the loss or taking lots of little losses. And then we finally give up. So once the trader is on tilt or does revenge trading, it's too late. And what we want to do is we want to give the trader so much self-awareness and understanding when they're prone to making these mistakes that we now can inoculate. So for example, as I just mentioned with my trader from last week, who he kept being taken out at 1 or 2 ticks, and then the trade would take off without him, then he would go on tilt. Now that he was aware of this, because he wasn't aware of this before, but all he knew was like, man, I'm going on tilt again. What's wrong with me? But when we really looked at how did the sequence happen, he knew that every time or next time when he's being taken out with 1 or 2 ticks, that now he's at risk of doing something stupid. Now he's at risk of going on tilt. And now we can inoculate. Now he can say, okay, so now I need to step back and make sure that I'm really, really disciplined and follow my strategy. So that's, for example, one mistake where traders are just really not aware of their behavioral patterns. So what do they do before they start revenge trading? So a lot of self-awareness work needs to be done. Another common bias or problem I see with traders who don't do well is that they don't get over their losing trades quick enough. So again, when I look at Linda, right? So Linda would send me a message on Skype saying, oh, damn it, I got out of my trade too early. And I would be maybe in a coaching session or busy with something else. And 10 minutes later, I'm responding to her message saying something. And she's like, what are you talking about? She's already forgotten it. She has this moment of, oh man. And then she immediately gets on with it. And I remember the coach of Serena Williams, Patrick, he's got a French surname. I think he's a French guy. So Serena Williams was here at our Australian Open and she lost. And she loses so graciously, doesn't she? She's just such an amazing person. And he tweeted that champions, they take their losses graciously. They work on what they can improve on, and then they get on with it. They don't sit on it. They don't regret it. They don't keep feeling bad about it for the rest of their lives. They just get on with it. And so when we look at traders who do really well, Sylvia, I see this is their common denominator. They make a mistake, they get really angry about it for a very short period of time, and then they look for the next opportunity. So that's another one of the biggest challenges really that I see with traders, that they're so angry at making mistakes. So I was working with a trader, it was really interesting. He sent me an email saying I was responding to an email. I saw this amazing setup on my charts, and I didn't take it, and it could have been, you know, a $3,000 day. I'm so angry and frustrated. And then I said to him, why did you respond to an email? And he said, I tried to be productive. And I said, yes, you were productive, weren't you? You responded to your email. And so I tried to show him that he was actually doing the right thing, because he said, I want to be productive. He didn't sit there saying, I want to make money and look at my trade. And so when he realized that he was not focused on his trade, what we then uncovered was that he had an avoidance strategy, that he was kind of trying to distract himself so that he didn't need to take that trade, or that he didn't need to risk anything. And so then we needed to look at what was his fears around taking trades and why did he have this avoidance strategy. Another trader, also a similar story, but a little bit different. He also sent me the same message. I'm so angry at myself. I did really well. The first hour, he trades the decks as well, doing really well the first hour, decided to take a half an hour break just to replenish and to fill up my emotional capital and physical capital, and just to gain my focus again. But then I saw a really great setup and I didn't take it, and it could have been a massive day, and I'm so angry at myself. And then I said to him, so then he was like, I'm not disciplined, I need to be more disciplined. And the interesting thing is that he has a Navy background, right? So he's ex-Navy dude. So, and they are so disciplined, aren't they? And I asked him, what did you do when you had to do something that you didn't like doing? And he said, I just did it, right? So I just did, I didn't even think about it. I got the order to do what I needed to do and I did it. And I said to him, exactly that is what you did in your trading. You did really well. You gave yourself the order to take a break and you honored that. So you actually were disciplined because you didn't sit there saying, I'm going to take a break. And when he realized that, he was like, oh my God, I did. So you can see traders still so quick to judging themselves and being upset with themselves. And this is how they stand in their own way, that they are not seeing the reality for what it is. And I can't see my reality either. That's why I have a coach myself. And my coach then points things out to me and I'm like, really? No, I don't believe that. Can't be. How many more examples would you like, Sylvia? I can talk all night.
All right, Gilbert has a question.
All right, thank you for that, Mandi. There's a quote that you had made in an earlier interview where you said that behavioral patterns that start out in our childhood can later on play out in our adulthood unconsciously.
Yeah.
So for someone who is not a psychologist, where does someone start in order to address some of these behavioral patterns? How far back does someone need to go, and how do they start addressing that issue?
Yeah, awesome question. Thank you, Gilbert. So it's not about how far we need to go back. It's just, I always say the patterns, the behavioral patterns that we show today, we learned that sometime in our life. And so how I shared before with a trader who as a child went from really wealthy to really poor, how did that impact him? What kind of coping behavior did he develop to deal with the pain, to deal with the shame, to deal with whatever he needed to deal with, the new reality, right? And how does he do that today? So this is the only the two connections we want to have. So for example, we have a trader who, let me think of an example, something that we uncovered. That's right. So I was working with a trader, awesome girl from the UK, from London, and she was very timid to get into the trade. And she was timid to get out of the trade when the trade was in a loss. So she froze. She would be paralyzed. She would become like apathy, like, completely disengaging from the trade to really avoid taking that loss. And so we call that disconnecting, disassociation in neurolinguistic programming. And then I said to her, you have learned, so this is what we call an avoidance strategy, where she's avoiding to deal with what needs to be dealt with. And I said to her, you have learned that behavior sometime in your life, because when we then looked at other areas of life, her health, her relationships, so she went through divorce with her husband, ex-husband, and other areas of life, it was always the same pattern, always the hiding pattern. And then I said to her, that feeling that you get when you're in this losing trade and you want to run away or you want to hide, is that a familiar feeling? And she said, yes. So, she had to look first and think about it. And she said, yes, it's actually familiar. And what happened was that she, and she would have been maybe 12, 13 in school. The boys thought it is really funny to have potato guns. I don't even know what a potato gun is, but they used potato guns and then shot at her with a potato gun. And because the boys were bigger than her, all she could do is just hide, right, and wait until it's over. because she wasn't strong enough to fight them. And then she went to her parents and she told them, and the parents said, don't be such a baby, you know, what are we supposed to do? Just get on with it. Then she went to the teacher, and the teacher said, it's just the boys. Boys do these things. So no one took her serious in her pain and in her fear. And so she learned that she didn't matter. She learned that the only way to cope with it at that time was to hide, because she was physically not stronger. She could not outrun them. Now, as an adult, this is not applicable anymore, of course, right? As an adult, she is strong enough and she can take action and she can defend herself. But because it was in her unconscious, that was unconsciously still playing out what she experienced as a child, the helplessness and the hopelessness. And this is why she was behaving in trading the way she did, why she didn't take her losses. Now, so step one is to say, I have learned this behavior, whatever it is, micromanaging, letting losses run, being afraid of getting to a trade. You have learned this behavior somewhere in your life. You're not born with it. And that's the good news. That means you can change. Now think about that feeling that comes with it, that thought pattern that comes with it. Where else in your life do you do that? Is there a pattern in your life? And at first everybody says, no, I only do that in trading. And then I say, let's have a look, just really think about it. And I say, actually, now that you're saying it, yes, I do it here and there and everywhere. Okay, so growing up, where did you, I don't say growing up, say, so where in your life, when in your life did you have that feeling the first time? Do you remember? And then usually they remember those experiences. And we all have them, right? Because we are human. And it's just about understanding. So I remember, for example, when I started trading, I always felt that the markets are dominating and intimidating, and I'm at the mercy of the markets. And I didn't know where that came from, right? Because we are not. Like, I have control over my mouse button. And how that would play out then is that I would let losses run because I felt I don't have power, or I don't have control over myself. And this is something my kinesiologist, so in case you wonder what I'm talking about, Kinesiologist, kinesiologist. She told me when we have this feeling in our solar plexus, so in the middle of the tummy, that is usually the feeling of that we don't have control. When we have feelings in the upper chest, so when you want to take a trade and you hesitate taking the trade, and I always ask my trader, where in your body do you feel that? And then I say, let's say in the upper chest, that is a sign that this is a lack of self-belief. So our body talks to us the whole time. It's so interesting. So I have the most epic conversations with my kinesiologist that are relevant for my traders. And so I didn't realize where this feeling of being dominated came from. And then I did landmark education and I did some work, and I realized that my brother's amazing, right? I love him to bits. And so my brother is really good at talking. He's a lawyer, a very successful lawyer. And so he was always good at talking, and being 3 years older than me, he always was the boss. And him being a boy, he sometimes played really rough with me, and I didn't want to play rough because I was a little girl. But that's what kids do, right? We can all observe that in kids. And I always laugh with my brother when I look at his kids, because they're the same now like we were as kids. And so then I realized, and I was 30 then, by the way, I realized that my experience of the market being dominating and intimidating was actually my experience with my brother. And so I had to have a chat with my brother and had to really look at myself and say, how do I interact with him? And, I'm an adult now, and this is just the echoes from the past, and that's not reality anymore. And as I found peace in this, as I realized where this behavior came from, it completely disappeared in my trading. Yeah, so these are the steps that you do. You look at what do you feel? What are you thinking? Where else in your life do you have the same pattern? And then when did you do it the first time? And sometimes you need to go in like 10-year increments. in the last 10 years, where did I do that same thing? And the 10 years before, where did I do that same thing, until you get to the original event? So is that answering your question, Gilbert?
Yes, perfectly.
Yeah?
Thank you.
Good, good.
All right, Mandi.
Shall-
There's this common phrase that traders normally use about trading psychology and the success rate. So it normally goes like trading psychology determines over 80% of traders' success. And I saw your tweet regarding this common phrase a while back. So do you agree with that statement? And if not, why?
Can I ask you, Sylvia, what's more important, my arms or my legs? What would you say?
All of them.
They're all important, right? They have different functions. I can do things with my arms I can't do with my legs. And so to me, trading psychology and trading skill are the same. You can't compare them. You can't say one is more important than the other because they're completely different. We need both in order to function. And I saw this quote from someone, and it says, if you don't have a great trading skill, all the focus in the world is not going to make you successful. And yeah, I get that. That's true. But on the flip side, if you don't have focus, no trading skill in the world is going to make you successful. So it always works in reverse as well. We need both. That's my answer. And it never changes because the markets change, new challenges come up. We have new challenges in life. So for example, Linda, she just became a grandmother. And so being a grandmother is now different challenges because she wants to spend a little bit more time with her grandson, right? So now she needs to adjust other things in life. So there's a new challenge. So yeah, did that answer your question of how I think about, yeah.
So I think for you, it's like 50-50, like you can't do without the other.
Yeah, so you constantly need to work on both. You look at what your trading skill is like. It's really simple. Do you do what you know to do? So let's say you say, I'm getting out at this level, and you don't press the mouse button to get out. Well, there's your trading mindset challenge that you need to overcome. Now, are you a discretionary trader? And you're like, oh, should I get out here? Maybe I let it go a little longer. Or should I get out there? Well, to me, that's a trading skill challenge because your strategy is not defined enough and you haven't trained yourself to get out of the position. Because here's the other misconception. Just because we write it on a post-it note or we have written down our trading strategy methodology does not mean that we can do it. So if I explain to you now how to play a forehand in tennis, or let's say Serena Williams is coming, right? Because she's the best. And she is like, Sylvia, this is how you play a forehand in tennis. And she even shows it to you. Do you think you can copy what she does?
No.
No, right? You expect that you have to practice it. And then you have to get Serena to give you feedback and to correct maybe your arm movement. Now, why do traders think that they can, just because they write something on a piece of paper, that they can do it? So I always encourage my traders, go on sim, go on live market replay, put a little bit of money into the account and practice taking losses. So here's a really interesting thing, right? So the brain via the nervous system, which is the nerves along your spine, tells the muscles and also your intestines, right, your heart and your liver, etc., what to do. And there's this common phenomenon now where people go to the gym, but they can't build muscles, they can't gain fitness. And so my kinesiologist explained to me that when we sit too long, or when we had injury, or when we had a traumatic experience, then often the connection brain, nervous system, muscle doesn't work anymore. And so it's like your muscles, so like the brain is the where the Wi-Fi sits, or the internet connection sits, right? The muscles are what you want to do, but the Wi-Fi is not connected. And so the brain can give the muscles as many information as possible. The Wi-Fi doesn't work, the muscles don't respond. Like we just had the situation, right? So you're on your side, I'm on my side, internet didn't work. We couldn't talk to each other. I kept talking, you kept talking, we couldn't hear each other. And so you need to understand that when you write down that you want to press that mouse button, there is no neural pathway between your brain and that finger on your mouse. So you have to create those neural pathways and train your nervous system that press that mouse button, okay. But who trains it? Who practices that? Not many people. My traders in my group, they have to practice that. They have to train and practice. I can tell you, I don't know if you saw some of the testimonials that they now pop up on Twitter, which I'm so grateful for. And again, it's not me doing it, it's them doing it because they do the work. I have the easy job. I just say, you do this and you do that. Now go. And so, you know, one of my guys went from being a losing trader to making about $500 a day on average. Well, simply because he has been practicing pressing that mouse button and to get out when he says to get out.
All right.
So, yeah.
Good response. As we start taking the questions from the participants,
Yes.
you have touched on some key attributes that traders can use to become, you know, at the right mindset for their trading, and you touched on self-management, which is also big with self-awareness, correct strategy, practicing taking losses. Maybe you can mention anything that I haven't touched on, and then we can take questions with the help of Gilbert.
Okay, so if I were to start out with my trading, they're really the three areas that I would look at. If I only had known then what I know now, oh my God, my trading journey would have been half. So you start with self-awareness. Right? That's the most important thing. What do you think? What do you feel? How do you talk yourself out of doing what you say you would? So how do you talk yourself out of getting into the trade when you see the setup? What do you literally say to yourself? So I used to say, for example, to myself when I was in a losing trade, oh my God, I bet that the moment I get out of my trade, it's going to turn around. That's my experience. And so this is how I would talk myself out of taking a loss. Now, what I'm saying to myself today is, well, of course it will. That's Trader Murphy's Law. And I know, I'm sure you guys have the same experience. You get out of your trade, it's going to turn around. But that's not the point. The point is you get out because you don't know what the future brings. And you can always get back in. And so that is, for example, also something where I then would listen to my self-talk and then rewrite my script. So when I say to myself all the reasons why I don't need to do what I said I want to do or what my strategy says, then to change my self-talk with myself and then practice that again as well. So that's just what I would add.
All right.
All right, thank you so much.
Can we go questions?
Yeah.
Yes. All right, thank you so much for having taken the time to come here today. And we are getting a few questions here. There is one from King Daniel, where he's saying, could you please reference the link that talks about the 4 energy types of people, please?
Okay, so simply Google DISC profile, D-I-S-C profile. I'm going to put it in the chat. D-I-S-C profile. And if you go to Tony Robbins, which is tonyrobbins.com, I think, and then he has a DISC profile for free that is really good, and it's like a 50-page report. So when you come out as one specific energy, let's say you as a high C, that means that you make best your decisions when you have a sequence of 3 or 4 decision-making levels, like what I shared with you guys before. Can't see it in the chat. Did I? No, I sent it to the panelists, so maybe you guys can send it in the chat. Is that okay?
Yes, to all attendees.
Yeah. And so, actually, let's do that. So, if you are a high S, you need time to make your decisions. You're not suited so much for scalping or shorter term trading because you don't have the ability to make really quick and fast decisions. But you can train yourself to do that. It doesn't mean that you can never trade scalping. You can train yourself to make really quick decisions. If you're a high I, you're in touch with your intuition and your feelings. You can learn that as well. And if you're a high D, and usually it's the high Ds who do extremely well because they're focused on facts and figures. So just to give you another example, one of my traders, he would get out of the trade too early. And again, a similar experience where he went from being wealthy to poverty as a child. And so he would always have the fear of giving his profits back. And then I said to him, so how do you talk yourself out of staying with a trade, and how do you allow yourself and make it okay to press that mouse button and get out? And he says, I don't want to lose the profits again. It's, the stress is too much. I can't take it anymore. So he would always talk about himself. And then I asked one of my super successful traders, I said to him, how do you do that? Because he has the same fears of giving profits back. He has the same fears of the trade ending up in a loss, exactly the same fears. And he said to me, when the trade breaches my uptrending line and when the order flow changes, that's when I get out. So you can see the first trader who wasn't successful made it all about himself, about his fears, about how he didn't want to feel bad. The second trader, who is extremely successful, made it all about what does the chart tell me? What does order flow tell me? What does price action tell me? In order to do that, you need to be a skilled trader. You need to understand what the market tells you.
All right, thank you for that. Peter Joseph is asking if as a trader you have lost money and your personality fits into day trading, and being that he's also employed, how should he put a trade and separate himself from it? Then he says, I have lost money.
Awesome question, because now the question is, what does losing money signify for you? The trader who went from being wealthy to poverty, for him losing money meant that, the shame and the guilt, being looked upon by his friends as someone who is a loser, and something that he's doomed, that he can't come back from, which is quite ironic because he is now a very successful manager in a big firm. But he always has this fear. So we need to know what losing money means to you specifically. And for many traders, it means that they can't make it in trading. So what do they make it mean about themselves? They're not good enough, that there's scarcity, so they can't find another trade. Maybe they're not deserving because they did something really bad as a child or as a young adult that they feel so ashamed about. So you see, for everyone, something different. And then when you know what losing money means about you, then have a look at what does it mean about trading or the world. Do you really believe deep down that you can be a successful trader? Now, if you don't believe, if you have this feeling that you can't do it, then you have to do mindset work. Right? So then there's the next challenge for you to overcome. The thing is that you can't separate yourself quickly from having lost money if you have had a traumatic experience around money. You need to find peace in that traumatic experience first. That's then when the trading mindset work comes in. But if you haven't had a traumatic experience around money and you're just angry about losing money, then maybe have a look at what are your rules around money. Are you allowed to lose money? Because if you look at our society, losing money is a bad thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about you guys, I'm happy to lose $200 in the markets, but if I lose $5 out of my pocket, I get angry at myself. How could I be so careless? Really weird, isn't it? I was talking to a trader of mine, amazing guy, right? So he's like a 4-figure trader a week. And we were joking that we are happy, or he is happy to lose $1,000 on a trade, but then he goes to the supermarket and he buys the special so he can save $2, right? It's the conditioning where we're being trained around money and what is acceptable and what not. Maybe you have taken on rules that, you know, from society that are not your own rules. So look at really what does money mean to you, and then just sit there and feel the feelings. Just be with it. Don't interpret it. Just let them wait till they go away, because feelings come in waves, and then you're ready for the next trade. Yeah. So that's what I would do. Working full time, so it depends on which country you live in. You know, you can always trade Forex. There's always a market open to trade. That's the beauty about it, right? That's, I think, why so many are drawn to Bitcoin as well. So I hope I answered your question. It's always a little tricky when we don't have more information.
All right, maybe for the last question, what's your take on spirituality and trading? Do you believe that one requires spiritual growth to advance in trading to higher levels?
Oh, I love this question. So here's the thing, right? I see a lot on Twitter. You have to meditate, you have to eat healthy, you have to sleep enough, you have to be this perfect little person so that you can be successful in trading. Now, I can tell you a secret. Some of my most successful traders, like 6 figures a month, they don't meditate. They eat junk food like everyone else. Some of them smoke. They're just normal people. They don't do anything specific. So no, you don't need to have spirituality, meditation, some rituals and habits to succeed. Does it help? Yes, of course. Now, if you feel it makes you better. So for example, one trader I have, which incidentally this 4-figure a week trader, he meditates because he has ADHD, right? So he's naturally very wired and very fighting spirit. So he wants to calm himself down, and he takes cold showers to, you know, slow down. So this is understanding himself, because ADHD is wired in our brain. It's you know, we can't change it. We can change it with medication, but he doesn't want to take medication. So that's why meditation rather than medication is useful for him. But you know, one of the most amazing traders I know, and I've never spoken to him personally, unfortunately, but Alba Capital Management, this guy used to trade for Paul Tudor Jones. He drinks, he likes his drink, you know, he doesn't meditate, he doesn't want to talk about feelings, he thinks it's all crap, but he is so good at understanding markets. He knows he has the skill, and he's just an amazing trader. So it is helpful if it makes you a better person. Rock on, enjoy it, but you don't have to. Cool. Yeah. So many more questions. I'm happy to answer them all, but if you guys are out of time, then
Yeah.
Enough time, we're out of time. So maybe just one, I just wanted to mention something that has been written by Travis. He said that I look at losses in terms of percentage, which I find sustainable and scalable. Psychologically, I find it much easier on the mind to keep steadying on.
yeah, and thanks for sharing that, Travis, because we can use those little mind tricks for ourselves to make us perform better. For some people, it's not about the money, it's not about the percentage, it's about their own self-limiting beliefs, and for them it wouldn't work. If that works for you, all the power to you. I found that most successful traders They don't think about the losses. They think about their capital. They don't want to lose the capital. They protect their capital, the golden goose that lays eggs, with everything they have. And that's why they don't find it hard to get to take a loss. Again, like Linda, she's like, I don't find it hard to take a loss. I don't know what people experience there. Now she has her own demons, her own challenges, which are different. But she's just really like, I've got my capital. I need to be smart about it. And so she finds it really easy. She rather gets out at a little profit than letting a profit run into a loss, for example. She rather re-enters a trade. The moment she has uncertainty about where it's going, she gets out. She rather gets back in. There was a trade, it was the cows, and she was in it over the weekend. Over the weekend, the biggest abattoir in America burnt down, and the market opened up limit down on a Monday morning. She didn't even think about it. She got out of it straight away. She didn't try to make it better. She didn't try to fix it. And then when she had clarity, she re-entered the trade and made it all back and more. And so she's like ruthless about it. So that's what I would also recommend. Try to focus your attention on your capital rather than how much you lose. So your percentage trick will help. For example, I like to have my desk, just talking about tapping into our superpowers. I like to have my desk really, really organized. Not because I'm an organized person, but a friend of mine that I absolutely respect, right? He's one of the best traders I've ever met in my opinion. He is super organized. So he would have his pen, everything just really cleanly laid out on the desk. And to tap into his superpower, I have my desk also arranged the same. And not because I'm a particularly structured person. I find tapping into other people's superpowers helps me a lot. Because what I found at the beginning, that I didn't have the strength to take a loss. But if I then don't think about myself and think I don't have the strength, but I think about my friend and how he just, or I think of Linda now even more, like I hear her voice, no, I don't have a problem taking a loss. I'm like, yeah, me neither, bring it on. So that might be helpful as well.
All right, thank you so
we're
much.
Out of time.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who gave their questions. I know we haven't been able to ask all the questions, but maybe Mandi, you could give your contact details if there's any way that our audience could be able to reach out to you, maybe that they can be able to push their questions after the session.
Best is on Twitter. So my Twitter is going to type it out, mpx_trader. There we go. Or through my website, highperformancetrading.com.au. So AU for Australia. Send me your questions via the email if you want to. So many epic questions. Shame we don't get to answer them, but I absolutely get it.
All right. Thank you so much, Mandi, for your time. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, guys can get in touch with you after this webinar. And of course, we'd love to have you again in the future, if your time allows. And then the last question from us, I would ask, can psychology be taught in a book, or do you need to go to someone for guided sort of coaching? And if there's any reference to any book that is really good with psychology.
Yeah, awesome question. I found a lot of traders that come to me, they have already read all the books, listened to all the podcasts and videos, and they have a lot of knowledge, but nothing much has shifted. And so what I've found is that there's this really big difference between knowing something and being able to do something, like the forehand example that I shared before, playing the forehand in tennis. I think, and I need someone as well for me to point out my patterns. Once we know our patterns, so I know exactly how I like to screw my success up. Having that awareness of how I like to self-sabotage, I can now be aware and catch myself. Mandi, you're just about to self-sabotage again. And then I don't need to do it anymore because I have this awareness. Now, I would have never, ever, ever found that out on my own, because I always like to say we can't see ourselves from the back of our eyeballs. And that's why it's so easy to point things out in other people, but to see it in ourselves, it's almost impossible. So I think, and it doesn't need to be a coach, right? It can be a friend who does that. In my opinion, Bret Steenbarger is still the best. His books, One-on-One Trading Coach, like you don't really need anything else in terms of trading psychology, trading mindset. And it's really beautifully structured as well. And take the questions. Now also Steve Ward, I don't know, have you had Steve Ward on your show already?
No, you would recommend him. Oh.
Yeah, I love Steve. He's awesome. So he wrote the book Bulletproof Trader, and so many questions. But if you ask yourself the questions, you can only answer, and this is what Einstein said, you can only answer, you can only solve, let me just write that. So that was Bret Steenbarger, and then Steve Ward, Bulletproof Trader. So you can't answer questions outside your own experience because you don't know what you don't know. And that's why have a friend asking you those questions, and someone who doesn't give you content but just keeps asking. So you say, so what's your greatest fear in trading? That I will never make it. So if you would never make it, what would that mean about you? If you never make it, what would you do instead? What can you do to make it? Right? Like the questions are always there. Get a trading buddy, a friend that you trust who's not non-judgmental to ask you that questions, and that will already help. Of course, a trained coach, we are trained in identifying the patterns already before you say anything. But it's also a question of finances, of course. So did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. And thank you so much, Mandi. Good night for you. We'll have you next time.
Thank you so much for having me. You guys rock. You do amazing work. So
thank you.
It's so beautiful to see.
We'll put the references to the show notes and then we'll send it over to you as well.
Actually, one more book, High Performance Trading from Steve Ward.
Okay.
That is really about performance, how to analyze your performance so that you use your statistics so that you can improve. You know how I said before, performance and trading psychology, trading mindset are really two different pathways. Right. On that note, for me, it's 11 o'clock. I go and get a beer now and first have a look at what the DAX is doing.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in and sticking with us to the end. We hope you have learned something new. I would like to appreciate Scope Markets for sponsoring this webinar. Remember, you can open a live trading account with Scope Markets and apply the lessons shared by the guest in this webinar to your trading. Many thanks to our guests for speaking to us. We'll be open to have you in the future. Till next time, goodbye.